Gary Ray Bowles was born in 1962. When he was a baby, his father passed away, and his mother was the one taking care of him. She had a lot of abusive boyfriends, though, and one Gary had enough of, and him and his brother beat him. And the mom, she took her boyfriend's side because Gary told her, "You have to choose me or him." She chose her boyfriend. So Gary left and he got in to sex work to make money. So, how apparently that started was this man who gave him a ride one time basically told him how he could make money, and from there on out, he that's what he decided to do. He would often stay at people's homes because he didn't have a home of his own. He met John Roberts at a bar. Well, John Roberts was letting Gary stay with him. Gary would end up taking John's life in a brutal way. And when they found John, they said that after he had been knocked out and Gary thought that he had passed away, that Gary ended up going and taking a shower, and at some point John woke up and tried to get help for himself but ended up passing out and passing away. David, I think I want to. I'm trying to say his last name right. David Jernigan was at a bar when he met Gary, and witnesses seen him with Gary. And at the bar was the last time that David was seen alive. So he would always put things down the victim's throats, whether it be a rag, paper towels, leaves, whatever. He would always put something down their throats. That was his signature move that he did. And from the first victim, he left a lot of evidence behind. He left his probation papers that they found. So he wasn't really that smart. So he would travel all the time, and this is why it was so hard for the police to catch him, because he was never in one place for too long. Albert, also by his family known as Jay, is what they would call him. He would end up meeting Gary, and he gave Gary a place to stay in exchange for like work around the house. But people around would say that Gary really wasn't helping or anything. That the way they described him as being kind of just lazy. So he moves in with Jay, and all the men that he has took the lives of, they're they're all gay. He always chooses gay men, and normally they're older. So with Jay, he was staying there for a while, and then he kind of worn out his welcome, and Jay was probably more than likely getting tired of him, because there was witnesses at the bar that they went to that they got in a horrible argument, because there were a lot of people that seen this argument. Well, that night Jay would end up getting his life taken. And Jay put up a fight, but Gary took his life. And then, like he did with the other victims, he took all of his cards, and he took the cars. He would do this with all of them. He would always take money, their cars, because he didn't have a car of his own. Well, what's so sad is with Jay, his sister and brother-in-law is the one that would find him. And they hadn't heard from him in a couple of days, and it wasn't like him. So they went to check on him, and that's where they found his body. And like I said, Gary was never in one place for too long, so it kind of made it a little bit more difficult to catch him. Well, Gary would go by a lot of other names too. So that was another thing that probably made it a little bit tricky. He would end up being on America's Most Wanted. And there would be people that would call. The thing though is that Gary would change his appearance a lot too. So you may see him one time and he looks a certain way, and then the next time he doesn't look like that. So that was another issue with him. He changed his look so much, he changed where he was. The thing though is they had footage of Gary taking money from the first victim, because they have footage of it. They have him at a store where he's with one of his victims. So someone gives a tip to the FBI that they know where Gary is, but he's going by one of his other names. So the police come, they pick him up, and when they interrogate him, he tells them who he is. So when he goes to trial, they try to say that, oh, he's the way he is because of his childhood. And then they tried to say, oh, he killed gay men because his girlfriend didn't like what he was doing, so she broke up with him. And so they blamed that on why he did it. He was still sentenced to death, though, and he would spend 26 years on death row. And in 2019, he would get lethal injection. And his last words were written down where he apologized to his mom and he said nobody wakes up wanting to be a serial killer. And then at 10:58 he would take his last breath.